Upon completion of his PhD program in media and politics, Ibrahim assumed a role as the country president at the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, United Kingdom, in Nigeria. In this capacity, he managed student recruitment for postgraduate programs in strategic public relations. In 2006, Professor Ibrahim took on greater responsibilities as the executive director of the Center for African Resources Development, United Kingdom. In this role, he mobilized resources for projects and education, health, and governance across Africa. The key achievement was coordinating a $5 million campaign for the Educational Support Initiative for Africa to enhance higher education institutions on the continent. His work also involved developing collaborative education programs to address socioeconomic and gender inequalities. Between 2011 and 2013, he successfully broke a partnership with the state government to improve educational access. During his tenure, he launched the Forum for Sustainable Democracy in Africa, FOSDA, and the Institute, a health intervention initiative supporting African migrants in Leicester, United Kingdom. In 2010, Professor Ibrahim advanced his commitment to community empowerment, serving as chair of the 2014 think tank within the Leicester Northwest Community Forum in the UK. There, he developed a participatory governance model based on public choice theory, effectively engaging hard-to-reach communities in the East Midlands and securing the support for empowerment initiatives. Concurrently, from 2008 to 2011, he was a visiting senior lecturer at Coventry University. Upon his return to Nigeria, he joined the services of the University of Lagos Department of Mass Communication in 2011 and was appointed Professor of Journalism and Communication Studies in 2020, significantly contributing to capacity building and journalism creation. He led the Bloomberg Media Initiative Africa, training over 600 journalists in financial reporting across Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. Since joining the university, Professor Ibrahim has consistently advanced the institution's international outreach and has since served as the lead strategist for the university's internationalization efforts in his position as the director of the Office of International Relations, Partnerships and Prospects. Global collaborations aligned with the SDGs and African Union's Agenda 2063. A remarkable milestone in his time in this role was the establishment of the Partnership for Trade Consortium, an innovative initiative uniting universities from the global north and global south in pursuit of a sustainable future for African universities. With several conferences attended at home and abroad, his president of international trainings has in no small measure further enhanced his academic performance. In 2022, he became the network coordinator for African Network to the University of Lagos, managing doctoral academies and research grants now amounting to $500,000 annually to drive digital transformation and inclusive technological advancements in Nigeria abroad. The distinguished academic has authored over 80 peer-reviewed publications and is a member of several professional associations, including the Association of Communications and Professionals of Nigeria, International Association of Media and Communication Research, and Chartered Institute of Public Relations, amongst others. Beyond academia, Professor Ibrahim's influence comes to the non-profit sector. He has held pivotal roles, including chair of the Cable News Foundation Trustees and chair of the West African chapter of Academic Stand Against Poverty, as well as the Uptake Director, African Cities Research Consortium. Through these platforms, he continues to promote media literacy, human rights, and development advocacy. Professor Ibrahim is happily married with children. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to invite Professor Ismail Adegboyega Ibraheem to present his inaugural lecture.
The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Management Services, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic and Research, the Acting Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, the Provost College of Medicine, the Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Deans of other faculties, members of the University Senate, the Head Department of Mass Communication, heads of other departments, distinguished academics and professional colleagues, distinguished non-teaching colleagues, dear students and alumni, members of the press, print and electronic, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Vice Chancellor, it is both a profound honor and a rare privilege to stand before you on this momentous occasion to deliver the 5th inaugural lecture of the 2024-2025 academic session. This moment carries special significance, being only the 3rd inaugural lecture in the 58-year history of the Department of Mass Communication. And notably, the first ever delivered by an alumnus of this esteemed department. The words of the Almighty resonate deeply within me on this day. If you were to count the blessings of your Lord, they would indeed be countless. Which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? Truly, I'm a living testament to this boundless grace and favor of the Almighty. My journey with the University of Lagos began in September 1986, when I was admitted into the mass communication program. At that time, mass communication was offered in just 4 universities in the whole country. The Department of Mass Communication here and remains a jewel of distinction. In fact, mass communication program at University of Lagos is likened to an harmonious blend of Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge. When I completed my first degree in September 1990, my sights were set on making a mark in public relations, which I believed offered the best opportunities for financial success, a sentiment widely shared among my peers at the time. I dreamed of joining the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC Public Relations Department. Driven by my ambition, I embarked on the National Youth Service, intent on proving one of my friend and classmate, Oke Onwuchekwa, wrong in his prediction that I will excel more in print journalism. Well, fate had other plans for me. My posting took me to the Civil Liberties Organization, not the NNPC. Initially, I thought this was just a mere detour, but destiny, with its mysterious ways, decided otherwise for me. What began as a reluctant posting turned into an extraordinary 8-year journey, which redefined my career and life. Madam Vice Chancellor, in 1997, I was awarded the prestigious British Chaplain Scholarship and embarked on a transformative academic journey at Leicester University to undertake another master's program in mass communication. Building on this foundation, I pursued a PhD at the same institution, focusing on the interplay between media, politics, and public policy. It is therefore fitting to describe myself as an academic activist whose approach has been shaped by 3 key factors: activism, critical academic tradition, and spaghetti reasoning. Spaghetti reasoning describes a non-linear way of reaching conclusions through a method that looks at the big and whole picture and connects seemingly unconnected ideas together. This is the way mass communication scholarship from different disciplines and schools of thought. And this is the idea behind my conjoining of casino journalism and the end of history. My dual identity as an activist and an academic has afforded me a unique perspective. Activism exposed me to the power of the media and the practical intricacies of journalism, which I view as a craft of sense-making, public deliberation, and communicative action. My experience often challenged existing theories and pushed the boundaries of what we know and what is possible. When I coined the term casino journalism, Madam Vice Chancellor, I searched online to see if anyone had already used it in a way I intended. There was none. The term was only linked to how casinos were reported, not to describe journalism itself. So this is a kind of innovation that is coming from the University of Lagos. When I settled on casino journalism as the topic of my inaugural lecture, several friends were intrigued and asked me to explain, what do you mean by casino journalism? After explaining, they came up with their own definitions. Some call it kalo journalism. Some call it eyi journalism. That is, this eats, this doesn't eat kind of journalism. Some call it cocktail journalism. And of course, some call it brown envelope journalism. But reducing the crisis in journalism to brown envelope practices alone risks oversimplifying what is in truth a systemic, structural, and existential problem within the industry. Therefore, Madam Vice Chancellor, the concept of casino journalism is like a critique of the evolving media landscape, one where randomness, sensationalism, and profit-driven motives dominate the journalistic enterprise. Journalistic integrity and the public good are often sacrificed in such a landscape for short-term gains. Madam Vice Chancellor, the second and the last inaugural lecture from the Department of Mass Communication, delivered 21 years ago by one of the titans in the field, Professor Ralph Afolabi Akinfele, prime journalism in Nigeria has been caught between 2 identities, the fourth estate of the realm and the fourth estate of the wreck. This dual characterization underscores the intrinsic connection between journalism's performance and the governance structures of society. Media platforms, as the primary vehicles of journalism, play a critical role in this dynamic. My lecture seeks to expand on Professor Akinfele's question. Is journalism the fourth estate of the realm or the fourth estate of the realm? Madam Vice Chancellor, I contend that without urgent intervention, we are sliding dangerously towards the wreck. With this, we may be sleepwalking into the ruin of societal structures, driven by a media ecosystem under threat from various forces. Madam Vice Chancellor, scholars have long debated the dual nature of reality. This debate often underpins the concept of the social construction of reality. The social construction of reality underscores the media's pivotal role in crafting and influencing public perceptions of reality. Media outlets do more than distribute information. They actively shape how audiences perceive and understand the world around them. The media doesn't just report the news. They decide what is newsworthy, directly affecting public discourse and collective consciousness. The media set the agenda for public discourse, influencing what issues dominate the public's attention. Through their selective presentation of topics, the media determine which issues are prioritized, thus shaping the collective understanding of what constitutes reality. A crucial point in the social construction of reality, Madam Vice Chancellor, through media is the acknowledgement that the media are not neutral. They strategically curate narratives, consciously or unconsciously, reinforcing or challenging societal norms through their representation of various groups and issues. This battle for control over the media narrative are often framed by dominant groups in the society who strive to have their constructed reality reflected in media, sidelining alternative or subordinate viewpoints. Madam Vice Chancellor, I've explored media and social construction of reality in some of my studies and published work conducted singly or in collaboration with others. Among these are undermining the freedom of expression, media ethics and election coverage, media and politics, mediating politics, human rights and democratization in Nigeria, generic framing of Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria, media of crisis, trust and power, relational capital and reputational management, campaign against polio vaccination in the North, proximate values and health risk communication. Some of these studies are what I put together as narratives of reality. One of the very important studies that I was part of was conducted by myself and Dr. Tunde Akani from Lagos State University. In our study, we explore how the media framed the renewed agitation for Biafra by the Nnamdi Kanu-led indigenous people of Biafra from March to June 2016. The analysis focused on media framing messages in three prominent Nigerian newspapers: Daily Trust, based in the North, The Punch, based in the Southwest, and The Sun, based in the East, Southeast. We found that media coverage varies significantly, reflecting the ethnic and political biases inherent in each outlet. Daily Trust provided news stories generally aligned with the federal government's stance against the Biafran agitation. In contrast, The Punch showed reluctance to support the Biafran cause, although it did present some critical viewpoints. Meanwhile, The Sun consistently provided coverage sympathetic to the Biafran cause, often using strong visual imagery and framing its stories favoring IPOB and other pro-Biafra groups. Media are supposed to actually negate reality, but in this particular case, they reflect different realities based on where they're actually coming from. The disparities in the coverage among these three newspapers highlight how media outlets align with ethnic and political interests, often reinforcing existing regional divides. Instead of acting as neutral observers, media outlets tend to amplify tensions by reinforcing one-sided narratives, which can promote conflicts and polarize public opinion. The study also pointed out the gaps in Nigerian journalism, particularly the lack of investigative reporting and in-depth analysis of critical issues like the Biafran agitation. Most of the stories analyzed relied heavily on official statements from governments or press releases rather than engaging in thorough, independent reporting. This reliance on armchair journalism limits the media's ability to provide comprehensive and objective coverage, which fosters informed debate and facilitates conflict resolution. I'm going to leave the judgments to you, the audience, to decide whether this actually qualifies as good journalism or as casino journalism. Madam Vice Chancellor, media organizations exemplify the diverse ways in which media frame both local and global events, reflecting contested realities. In Nigeria, media organizations often reflect their political biases, while international media also exhibit clear biases, particularly in emotive and polarizing conflicts, such as between Israel and Palestine or Russia and Ukraine. While the media reflect political biases, in the political history of Nigeria, they have played commendable roles in promoting narratives of the oppressed and sometimes voiceless Nigerians, fighting oppression and excesses of the ruling class. Madam Vice Chancellor, allow me to share an example that vividly illustrates how media power is navigated in an environment of dual and contested realities. In 1998, I was entrusted with managing the campaign activities of the Civil Liberties Organization, standing in for my colleague, Dr. Tunde Akani, who was away on a fellowship program at Columbia. At that time, the political landscape of Nigeria was firmly under the control of General Sani Abacha. Through manipulation and coercion, he had successfully compelled all government-recognized political parties to adopt him as their sole presidential candidate. To solidify this illusion of public endorsement, his supporters organized a 2 million man rally in Abuja. The opposition based in Lagos, however, faced insurmountable challenges. Many leaders were already in exile, some were in prison, and others have met untimely deaths. In this oppressive climate, the pro-democracy movement had little recourse but to wield the power of narrative. As Abacha's camp staged their 2 million man march, the responsibility, Madam Vice Chancellor, fell on me to come up with a counter narrative that will delegitimize Abacha's supporters' narrative. I came up with the counter narrative of a 5 million man march. Although I was convinced at that time that we would barely mobilize 1,000 protesters. Amidst the pervasive fear and repression, our framing strategy turned the tide. Media outlets embraced and amplified this narrative, landing its unexpected legitimacy. Madam Vice Chancellor, these are some of the reports in the media. You can see 5 million man, and it was reported in most of the major newspapers in the country. And we actually got headline position. Most of the reports from Abuja, they were maybe second or third or even fourth headline. Some of them were even inside the newspapers. On the day of the protest, more than 200 demonstrators at Yaba, only to be met with every armed contingent of mobile police officers. The protest was violently disrupted, which we expected, and arrests followed. But as Todd Jitley famously remarked, the whole world was watching. The whole world's gaze was actually set on Yaba. By the next day, headlines across various media platforms boldly proclaimed, 5 million man march disrupted in Lagos. Despite the overwhelming turnout in Abuja, our narrative had successfully undermined the legitimacy of the rally in Abuja. Madam Vice Chancellor, this example underscores a profound reality. The media are indeed sites of power, capable of legitimizing or delegitimizing authority, though on reflection, this could be described as casino journalism. Madam Vice Chancellor, I would like to foreground some of the intellectual discourses that have significantly shaped my thoughts on today's topic. Over the years, I've drawn inspiration from numerous scholars. Forming my intellectual enclave, these scholars and their ideas have provided a rich reservoir of perspectives, enabling me to interrogate the role and performance of media in society. One of the most profound influences on my intellectual journey is Noam Chomsky, whose work, Manufacturing Concepts, the Political Economy of the Mass Media, co-authored with Edward Herman, the main seminar in media studies. In this book, they presented the propaganda model of media, exploring how news content is shaped by ownership structures, advertising, and elite influence. They argue that rather than serving the public interest, the media operates as a tool for the privileged few, ensuring that the public aligns with elite agendas. The book critiques the media's failure to act as watchdog, instead manufacturing concept for the ruling elite through selective reporting, agenda setting, and ideological reinforcement. This idea resonates strongly with my reflections on media performance and its impact on public discourse and democracy. Torjit Lin's The Whole World is Watching examines media coverage of the 1990s anti-Vietnam War protests, providing a critique of how media narratives can distort grassroots movements. Jitlin argues that the media trivialized the protests. What they did, Madam Vice Chancellor, was that they presented the students' protest as that of students who are not serious because exam was coming. They don't want to write exam. And that was a narrative that resonates with many people in the US that time. So with this, they try to delegitimize the student protest. And this is very common in most of the media narratives that are examined. The metaphor of the casino in today's lecture owes its origins to Susan Strange, whose book, Casino Capitalism, critiques the speculative, unstable nature of modern global finance. Strange's analysis of how speculative elites manipulate economic systems resonates with the challenges in contemporary journalism, where sensationalism and clickbait culture overshadow substantive, investigative reporting. A critique of the risk and inequalities associated with such systems mirrors my concerns about journalism's trajectory toward what I term casino journalism. These intellectual traditions form the bedrock of today's lecture. They challenge us to critically examine the performance of journalism in our society, question its trajectory, and reimagine its role as a catalyst for democratic accountability and social transformation. Casino journalism and the road to nowhere. Madam Vice Chancellor, the examples below are instances of very significant breaking news that caught the media's attention, but whose failure to adhere to good journalism principles resulted in my categorization of them as casino journalism and stories leading to nowhere, which have appropriately named the end of history. Media coverage of these significant issues prioritizes sensationalism of personalities involved in the stories, as well as the magnitude of resources involved in the issues, perhaps to attract public attention, reducing the coverage of important issues to the spectacle of spectators in a football match, held captive by the trappings of an entertaining football until the referee blows the final whistle. Game over. End of history. Move to the next stage. In the lack of attention to systemic failures that led to some of the scandals, media conflict inflicts us with collective amnesia and incomplete knowledge necessary to address systemic issues that enable the failings in the first place. And these are some of the examples of the stories that I examined. NNPC's non-remittance of funds. NNPC has faced persistent allegations of failing to remit billions of dollars to the government, particularly during the administrations of President Goodluck Jonathan and Muhammadu Buhari. Much of the media coverage surrounding the NNPC's non-remittance was sensationalized, misleading the public, and failing to provide accurate context or thorough investigation into the complexities of Nigeria's oil sector. Again, lack of attention to systemic failures that enable the scandal to happen in the first place. Madam Vice Chancellor, game over, end of history, we move on. Abacha loot refers to the massive investment of public funds by General Sani Abacha, Nigeria's military ruler, from 1993 to 1998, estimated between $5 billion and $10 billion. The funds were hidden in foreign bank accounts and largely unreported by the Nigerian media. Key failures again in the media coverage of the Abacha loot include a lack of investigative rigor, sensationalism, and political bias. The absence of investigative journalism during Abacha's rule left many critical questions unanswered. How did we get to this point? Again, Madam Vice Chancellor, lack of attention to systemic failures that enable this. That enable this kind to take place. Game over. End of history. We move on. Dasuki arms scandal, also known as Dasuki Gate, is one of the most significant corruption cases in Nigeria's history. The scandal erupted in 2015 when the then National Security Advisor was accused of misappropriating over $2 billion from the Nigerian government. Headlines such as Dasuki stole 2.1 billion meant for arms, or arms deal scandal, Jonathan's NSA pocketed billions, have been used by various outlets to capture the attention. In this case, again, the failure to contextualize the issue, provide investigative reporting, and seek expert analysis has perpetuated misinformation and prevented a meaningful public discourse about the broader systemic issues that enable this scandal to take place. Again, lack of attention to systemic failures that enable the scandal in the first place. Game over. End of history. We move on. The P&ID scandal, spanning from 2010 to 2019, is one of the most significant and controversial cases of alleged corruption, fraud, and mismanagement in Nigeria's history. Again, most media outlets relied on official government statements and speculations. The focus remained on accusations, with little attention given to examine the legitimacy of the contract in the first place, the financial dealings involved, or the role of international actors. Again, lack of attention to systemic failures that enable the scandal in the first place. Game over. End of history. We move on. The Niger Delta Development Commission, I'm very sure we are all familiar with this particular case. At the center of the scandal were allegations of financial mismanagement in contracts and misappropriation of funds made for the development of the Niger Delta region. But, Madam Vice Chancellor, when the head of NDDC was invited by the panel of the House of Representatives to explain what has happened, we know what happened. And the man slumped. And once the man slumped, end of history. Game over. We move on. In another recent instance of journalistic failure, Daily Trust issued a public apology over a misleading story published on July 4, 2024. The article LGBT, Nigeria signs 150 billion Samoa deal, generated considerable controversy and prompted a formal complaint from the Nigerian government. The trust eventually accepted the NMCC's ruling and issued a full apology to both the federal government and its readers for the inaccuracies contained in the story. The death of Nick Imudia, former CEO of Conga, has been shrouded in mystery. There are conflicting reports that imagine that some allege that he took his own life, and some he took his own life by jumping from a multi-story building. Madam Vice Chancellor, 2 days after, the family had to issue a rebuttal to say that when the story actually came out, they were still struggling to save his life. So journalists confronted the Commissioner of Police about this evidence, and the Commissioner of Police said that actually there are two narratives. One narrative says that he actually jumped into his death, while the second narrative said that he was actually pulled into his death. But again, systemic failures that led to this, surrounding this unresolved mystery. Game over. End of history. We move on. Madam Vice Chancellor, casino journalism has several negative effects on public discourse. In a country like Nigeria, reducing coverage of important issues in the society to bite-sized headlines not only misinforms the public, but also creates a culture of superficial engagement with important issues. The media's embrace of end of history narrative leads to a form of complacency in Nigeria. This complacency extends to the media's coverage of political corruption and mismanagement. Stories about corrupt practices involving politicians are often sensationalized for public consumption, but they rarely delve into the structural causes of corruption or offer meaningful solutions. The intersection of casino journalism and the end of history in Nigeria has created a media landscape that undermines informed public discourse and critical engagement with the nation's history and current events. These two phenomena have profound implications for how Nigerians understand their history and navigate their present challenges. To move forward, there is a need for a media transformation that prioritizes factual reporting, context, and critical analysis, as well as a more nuanced approach to reporting issues in the country, to democratic governance that acknowledges the country's complexities and historical realities. Madam Vice Chancellor, the implication of the twinning of casino journalism and the end of history is enabled by the following. Ethical standards are compromised by some of the media owners and professionals working for media platforms. Media platforms are living with powerful interests and politicians in the society in a mutually assured self-serving interest disguised as public interest. Media platforms being sold to the highest bidders in the guise of fictitious awards given to politicians and other powerful individuals to curry financial favors. Lack of transparency and clarity in the management of official information by the government. So, Madam Vice Chancellor, the roots of resilient democratic governance are deeply nourished by a robust, credible, and impartial media system. This has been challenged recently by the growing influence of combative, self-serving social media platforms, such as X and Trump's Truth Media during the US elections. Democratic integrity is compromised when the media is held captive by powerful interests, serving only to advance the agendas of specific individuals or groups rather than the public good. A good example is the defamation lawsuit brought against Fox News in the US by Dominion Voting Systems over the blatant accusation by Fox News that Dominion Systems manipulated the 2020 US presidential election in favor of a particular candidate. Fox News eventually settled the lawsuit with a $287.5 million payment over the lies. The critical question is this also possible in Nigeria? My current research. At the moment, I have two PhD students who are researching into the themes addressed in today's lecture. I also lead a national research project that is mapping Nigeria's press freedom and civic space to try to support the work of journalism. I'm also directing the research uptake component of the African Cities Research Consortium program to ensure that research is translated into impactful changes in policy, practice, and programs in Africa. All these have implications for the way journalism work is actually carried out in the country. Madam Vice Chancellor, the media reflects structures, power structures in the society. They are vulnerable to powerful interests in the society. While they are recognized for their role as watchdogs of the government and holding the government accountable on behalf of the public, they control the owners of media institutions have over predominant narratives in the media, put many questions on the satisfactory performance of the constitutionally guaranteed roles of the media. There is overwhelming evidence that casino-like practices in the society have sadly found their way into journalism in Nigeria, which, rather than acting as watchdog of society and a key institution holding public officials to account, is now turning into an enabler of casino-like practices in governance. Consequently, they are gradually becoming agents of massification of ignorance instead of promoting public consciousness and reasoned arguments. Madam Vice Chancellor, a responsible media system represents sites or zones of intersectional empowerment for the people. An irresponsible media represents sites and zones of intellectual travesty and intersectional deprivation. The media are the ontological compass to make meaning of our world, a place where epistemology of what is right comes out through discursive formation. Sites where rational thoughts and ideas are legitimated through a reasoned construction of the present. At the moment, a media system that enables casino journalism moves us closer to the obscene nature of teleological practice, underpinning the prevailing journalism culture rather than the desirable road of deontologically inspired responsible media. At the University of Lagos, I've been privileged to contribute to various impactful initiatives at the Department of Mass Communication, Faculty of Social Sciences, School of Postgraduate Studies, University of Lagos alumni, including being the university lead on the Bloomberg Media Initiative Africa program. Since 2017, I've been actively involved in the university's internationalization efforts, working with 3 vice chancellors to enhance UNILAG's global visibility and expand UNILAG's presence in the international higher education ecosystem. Through these efforts, I've sought to increase opportunities for UNILAG staff and students to engage with the global academic community. I had several positions in the faculty. I was chair of ICT committee at some time, chair of social science research laboratory, and member of different faculty committees. As the director of the Office of International Relations, Partnerships and Prospects, we have held several impactful programs. But because this is not inaugural lecture on international office, I don't want to delve into the details of that because that will take another inaugural lecture. But Madam Vice Chancellor, some of the impactful programs are the annual University of Lagos International Week, Doctor Academy Program, the African Student Leaders Network that involve more than 17 different African universities that was actually given birth to at the University of Lagos in 2019. And then the 3 minutes thesis competition that encourage people to actually discuss what they are doing in their thesis in 3 minutes in a way that it makes sense to people that are not in that field. I was at the postgraduate school, I was member of the postgraduate school board from 2014 to 2017, and I was editor of the Lagoon Review from 2016 to 2018. Part of my activities also involve being the chair of University of Lagos Press and Bookshop Board from 2021 to 2023, and a board member of University of Lagos Press and Bookshop from 2023 to date. I'm also the network coordinator for University of Lagos Afritech from September 2022 to date, and I've been an active member of the University of Lagos Muslim community. Several organizations have supported my activities and work at the University of Lagos. Some of them include the Ford Foundation, the European Union, Academic Stand Against Poverty, Afritech, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, African Cities Research Consortium, CRISED, as well as Bloomberg Media Initiative. Madam Vice Chancellor, I've supervised a number of students who are actually my mentees. I supervised more than 200 undergraduate dissertations. I've supervised more than 150 master's dissertations. Out of some of my master's students, my Vice Chancellor, more than 40 of them have now completed their PhD, not from the University of Lagos, but from other universities. I supervised 7 PhD students, including the oldest ever PhD students that the University of Lagos produced last year. Some of my students are mentees, are occupying commanding positions in different places. Some of them are in, I have one of them at University of Toronto, one of them University of Sheffield, one of them at University of California, Berkeley, one of my students with, several of my students with BBC West Africa, one of my students with Al Jazeera, and quite a lot of them working in different media organizations in Nigeria. Madam Vice Chancellor, my reflections. For the media, we need to actually make the ombudsman to be very, very active. We need a media ombudsman that will protect not only the government, but the public and voiceless individuals against irresponsible and casino-like media performance. We need innovative media funding. Some of the challenges that we have that led to casino journalism is the fact that the funding system for media organizations are not sustainable. So we need an innovative media funding program. We need to rethink journalism education in Nigeria. The industries of journalism and communication education hinges upon the adaptability to the evolving media landscape and the diverse needs of society. An insular approach will risk transforming journalism and communication schools into fortresses of intellectual stagnation, fostering uncritical thinking and inadequately prepared journalists. Madam Vice Chancellor, universities are secure zones of knowledge whose research outputs should be guiding or informing government policies. A top-down, very prescriptive system that leaves no room for university to do what they are best at, research, innovate, and guide society, is a recipe for disaster and permanent condemnation into the abyss of underdevelopment. When government policy stifles creativity, ideas, and growth in universities, the only result will be poverty of thought, knowledge, and more underdevelopment. The latest prescription of 30% of creative latitude in the 3C mass of the NUC is not the correct understanding and appreciation of what role universities should play in the society. Perhaps it is time to listen to what the industry needs, what will be key drivers of growth in the future, what the students want, and what are key government priorities regarding development imperatives for the country to drive curriculum development in our universities. Acknowledgements. I remain eternally grateful to my Creator, the first, the last, the hidden, the apparent, and the ever-living, and the Lord of incomparable majesty. To my beloved parents, wife, and daughter, who have gone to the world beyond, I remain ensconced in the eternal memories we share together. Especially the words of the Almighty you left me with. My dad, you used to remind me and my siblings that whether you are alive or not, the promise of the Almighty Allah to his prophet Ibrahim that all the progeny of Ibrahim will excel in whatever they do will extend to all your children. A promise made by Allah who never fails in his promise. Today's inaugural lecture, I think, is one of the accepted prayers of my dad. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the 13th Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Tolulope Ogunshola, and her husband, Mr. Segun Ogunshola. Madam Vice Chancellor, we are hoping that at some point, the social capital that Mr. Ogunshola has invested in supporting you will be translated into academic credits. In order to earn him a professor of practice in UNILAG, and if not in UNILAG, any future-facing university anywhere in the world. Madam Vice Chancellor, you are a visionary leader and my mentor, whose approach to life is grounded in futures thinking. From you, I learned the practical application of the Pareto principle in human management. I'm hopeful for your continued faith in me and look forward to continued collaboration. I sincerely appreciate the 12th Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwatoyin Temitayo Ogundipe, who is sitting here, and his amiable wife. You are a transformational leader and a great mentor. You had immense faith in me and saw potentials in my abilities that were not even apparent to me. I truly appreciate the guidance and opportunities you provided me and your unrelenting prayers for me. At a point, I reflect on whether praising our Creator is a short ticket to stardom. Oluwatoyin was the praise of our Supreme Creator, and I'm sure that reflected in your accomplishments. I'm deeply grateful to the 11th Vice Chancellor, Professor Rahman Adisa Bello, and his lovely babe, Alaja Mumudat Bello. You identified me from the rusty academic cocoon I was ensconced in and turned me into a shining gold. Your faith in my potential was a driving force in my professional growth, and I sincerely hope I have been able to exceed your expectations of me. Furthermore, I remain eternally grateful to your mentor, Baba Professor Ayogunye, sitting here, the Jagaband of University of Lagos. Thank you so much for that. I've had the honor, rare privilege, and good fortune of working with many outstanding first-class administrators who are working their socks out to ensure that University of Lagos remains a reference university in Nigeria and a shining light in Africa in the global community of outstanding universities. Among the serving greats are Professor Ayodele Victoria Masino, Chancellor of Development Services, my boss at the International Office. Thank you. Professor Lucian Chukwu, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Bola Obo, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research. The Acting Registrar, Mrs. Olakunle Makinde, the Bossa, the University Librarian, the Provost, Director of Academic Planning, as well as Director of Quality Assurance and Servicom. Former Principal Officers, I appreciate you. I'm deeply grateful to my significant mentors, Professor Olaide Abbas, who is sitting here, former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, and his late wife. Professor Abbas has been my father figure since my undergraduate days at the University of Lagos. He was the one who went to my dad to convince him to talk to me about Japada. After I had jackpot to the UK, he has always been my go-to father and pillar of support. Thank you, sir. Professor Isaac Oloyede, the dam registrar, and his amiable wife, Dr. Mrs. Raima Oloyede, who is actually here with us, have been reliable pillars of support to me. Professor Oloyede actually came yesterday, but he had to be recalled for an urgent national service, but is ably represented by the Vice Chancellor of Lagos State University of Education, Professor Adebayo Ninalowo, who is the right provided intellectual refuge to my wandering mind. Thank you, sir. Professor Rashid Ojikutu, thank you for your encouragement and always nudging me on in the early days. Professor Raf Afolabi Akinfele, he was attending the governing council meeting at the University of Abuja, and he said he had to be here today. In the early days, I wanted to run back to the UK. You say, no, you can't go back. You are already here and you are captured. Thank you very much, sir. I have a lot of former teachers as well as mentors. They are so recognized. Among them are Professor Dane Ologbela, Political Science. He was my teacher at this university, as well as Professor Solomon Akimboye. He was also my teacher when I did my master's in Political Science at the University of Lagos. Former deans of the faculty, as well as my colleagues at the Department of Mass Communication, you are all recognized. My neighbors at the Scholars Schools, especially Dr. Babatunde Sawyer and the incoming registrar, Mr. Abbas Adewicliffe, you are recognized. My neighbors at Nana Close, Professor Oluwole Familoni and his lovely wife, Professor Timothy and his wife, Professor Christiana Ayolabi and her husband, Professor and Professor Mrs. Adepoju Bello. Thank you so. My international Angola friend, a lot of them are online, and I think that the Consul General of South African Consulate will be somewhere here or maybe online. Professor Bobimore, thank you very much. Professor Lila Matthews, the first secretary at the EU Commission in Abuja, is online. Ambassador Wab Akade is online. The managing director of Sub-Saharan Africa, Bank of America, is online. Professor Joe Guri from University of Warwick is online. Professor Peter Batuvi is online. Thank you all so much. My tribe in UNILAG, Professor Muiwa Falaye, Professor Kaiba Lansing, Professor Sandy Adebisi, Professor Akim Amuda, Professor Uchena Odeani, Mrs. Josephine Achuaju, Mr. Bernard Owajiboye, as well as Funke Olaude from this day. My colleagues from the civil liberties organization, some of them are actually here. Mr. Gakoba, I think most likely might be online. Mrs. Ayo, my former president at CLO, is around. Abdul Oren is around here as yesterday, the former executive director of CLO. Mr. Richard Akiola is around there. Professor Kiwi Adikali is unable to come. He actually wanted to come, but he's online. Dr. Felix Monta, Professor Molade Adubi, Ogaga Ifodu, and several of my colleagues, and especially some of my late colleagues, late Chima Obani, late Toronto Douglas, as well as late Innocent Chukuma. My spiritual fathers and friends, I thank everyone for the support that they have given to me. Thank you very much for all the support. You motivated me to strive for excellence in every aspect of life. And two organizations that nurtured me. When I was a student, Muslim Student Society, University of Lagos, nurtured me. And then the Muslim Congress of Nigeria nurtured me. These two organizations contributed profoundly to who I am today. Thank you so much for the support. I'm immensely grateful for the gift of friendship and for having such incredible friends by my side. But I have two brothers. They are my brothers from another mother. Mr. Modupe Kadri, the CFO of MTN, is right here with us, as well as Prince Sulaiman Olagunju, who is also right here with us. My inaugural committee, thank you very much. Communication community, people come from different universities from around the country. Thank you very much for coming. Afritech, thank you very much. A lot of my colleagues, thank you very much. You are all acknowledged in the booklet. My secondary school mates, some of them flew, one of them actually flew in from Port Harcourt today, is right here, Mr. Adekunle. Thank you very much for coming, as well as Mrs. Ajibike, thank you very much for coming. My in-laws, I'm grateful to my Lord for the kindness and warmth I've experienced from my in-laws. The Bolanewas, the Shagaris, the Adedejis, the Olaoyes, the Omotayos, and their lions. I'm profoundly grateful to my Lord for the immense blessing of my parents, even though they are not here and they have limited education, but they contributed immensely to what we actually turn out to be today. But my uncle, Abba Peters, and his amiable wife, Victoria Odola Peters, represent my dad today. Mr. Abba Peters, please. Mr. Thank you very much, sir. And my sister, Alaja Modinat Olunloyo Akaba represents my mother today. Alaja, can you please stand up? I'm deeply thankful to the Lord for blessing me with my children, with my siblings. All my siblings are here. Thank you very much for being part of my life and part of my journey. I thank my Lord for the blessing with my children. Muhammad, Asia, Nana Adiza, and Madia. You've always believed in me, standing by my side through every challenge and triumph. Your encouragement, faith, and constant support have been a driving force in my pursuit of excellence. May Allah grant my late daughter eternal peace and keep us all united in His mercy. And I have several other children who are lifted. My late wife's name is Happiness. I'm profoundly grateful to my Lord for the time I was blessed to share with you. You epitomize selflessness and were a charitable giver, a lover and homemaker, making my career journey smoother and more fulfilling. Your short life with me was filled with unforgettable memories. I love you, but your Creator loves you the most. And here comes the glad time. Her name is Bushra. Please, can you stand up for recognition? I'm profoundly grateful to my Lord for the blessing of an epitome of glad tidings as my wife, a complementary health practitioner, sweetheart, my beloved daughter Anne, and an emblem of faith, my confidant, my telepathic partner, my bosom friend, my formidable partner of support, especially during my losses. I thank God for her presence in my life and pray for His continued blessings upon her. Thank you very much. Madam Vice Chancellor, this is my story, my journey, casino journalism, and the end of history. It's a product of the great University of Lagos that has now gained global traction. ChatGPT has recognized this. It says that the term casino journalism was recently popularized by Professor Ismail Adegboyega Ibraheem of the University of Lagos during his upcoming inaugural lecture. Madam Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests, I thank everyone for listening. This is my inaugural lecture. Please be seated. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the presence of former principal officers of the University of Lagos, Professor Rahman Bello, the 11th Vice Chancellor, Professor Toyo Bodipe, the 12th Vice Chancellor, Professor Duroni, former Deputy Vice Chancellor Management Services, Professor Relu Pamiloni, former Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics and Research,
Oluwarotimi Sodimu, Esquire, former registrar of the university. Dr. Kyle Itaye, former registrar of the university. Dr. Latif Adegboyega, former director of the university. Dr. Ismail Adegboyega, former director of the university. Professor Afolabi, former provost of the College of Medicine. Professor Wasiu Adeyemo, the CMD, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. I would also like to acknowledge the Jagadan of University of Lagos, Professor Ogunye, Tayodele Ogunye. I also recognize the mentors, and one of them is a former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Emeritus Professor Olade Abbas. Professor Ralph Akifeleye and Professor Adebayo Ninolowo. I also recognize one of the significant mentors, Dr. Mrs. Oloyede. I recognize Professor Bidemi Lafiaji Ogun, Vice Chancellor of Lagos State University of Education, representing Professor Isha Oloyede, the Registrar of JAM. I recognize the presence of Professor Bobby Moreau, the Consul General of South Africa, Madam Isa Onilu, the Director General National Orientation Agency, members of the Civil Liberties Organization here present, Mahdi Abdullahi, former Minister of Youth Development and Sports, Professor Suleiman Alabi, the Provost College of Health Sciences, University of Ilorin, Alhaji Najim Jimoh, former editor, Punch newspapers, Dr. Ibrahim Abdul, the rector of Yebe College of Technology. I also want to recognize the over 300 people online. I recognize the siblings, Mohammed, the siblings and the children who are mostly online, Mohammed, Asia, Hadiza, and Modia. And Dr. Abba Peter, representing the father of the inaugural lecture. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And Alhaja Adinat Olunloyo, the mother of Professor Ibrahim, the mother that is here. Finally, I want to recognize and congratulate Bushra Ibrahim, the spouse, the glad tidings, the confidence, the tear wiper, the telepathic partner, and the formidable pillar of support. Congratulations. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Services, Professor Ayodele Ashenwa. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Lucien Chukwu. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research, Professor Bolen Labo. Public discourse endangers historical contextualization and undermines our collective understanding of societal challenges. Professor Ibrahim's exploration into the end of history for instance, historical research into press freedom, initiatives like the Vibrant Openness Index for Communication and Expression, putting the beacon of hope for strengthening democratic accountability. His work with African Cities Research Consortium highlights the transformative potential for interdisciplinary collaboration in tackling urban challenges and improving governance across the continent. His profound insights into the dangers of sensationalism, the shifting dynamics of modern journalism, and the ethical responsibilities in an era of rapid technological change resonates deeply and serves as a reminder that the integrity of our media is closely linked to the health of the democracy. We are called to uphold journalism that educates, informs, and elevates society. Journalism that remains steadfast in truth, equity, and justice. Let us therefore heed Professor Ibrahim's call to protect and promote a free, responsible, and resilient media system. In doing so, we safeguard the future of our democratic ideals and we support the growth of a fledgling Nigeria. Professor Ibrahim Adegboyega, now that you have successfully paid your academic debt to the University of Lagos, with today's excellent inaugural lecture, with the immense contribution on improving our roads, on behalf of the Senate, you are hereby discharged and updated. I therefore welcome you to the committee of professors that have paid their dues. Congratulations. I thank you all for coming and wish you safe return to your various destinations. I hereby declare this assembly closed.